Hey guys, welcome to Off on an Adventure, a podcast where I tell you travel stories, mostly my travel stories right at the moment, but hopefully I'll be able to tell or get people on the show to tell their travel stories. But today's podcast is going to be a little bit more of a downer, to be honest. It's regarding a previous podcast where I talked about making my best travel friend, Lisa. And I told you a little hinty hint how about how things in Peru didn't go to plan per se. So let's get right into it. Um, Lisa and I hadn't seen each other for a long time, which I said in a previous podcast about how she was going to Peru and I wanted to go with her. I wanted to go with her so bad. So I took time off of work, paid like $1,000 for this plane ticket, which is the most I ever paid to go anywhere. For real. It's the most I ever paid to go anywhere just so I could be in Peru the same time she was in Peru. And our dream was to go to Machu Picchu together. So we get to Lima, we do our thing, we have our fun, and then we go to Cusco. And this is where stuff started to get unfortunate. So we get to Cusco, and we knew before getting to Cusco that the elevation is going to kill us. We were just in Lima. Lima is at sea level. So while we were in Lima, we bought the altitude medication that everybody tells you to buy. And so we bought the altitude medication. We took the pills like candy, trying to circumvent the experience of like of the altitude, but it didn't work. And we felt it. We walked just a little bit out the airport and we were dragging our feet. It was pretty bad. And we also felt like we were getting sick. So not only was the altitude affecting us, the like we felt like we were getting sick because we were in hostels. And so, of course, when you're in a hostel environment, you're around like too many people, weird people. We were also clubbing. And so, yeah, we felt like we were getting sick, and it was the highest we had ever been besides an airplane. But before going to Machu Picchu, everybody tells you to stay in Cusco for a little while to acclimate, especially since Cusco is at a higher elevation than Machu Picchu. So when you get to Machu Picchu, you'll probably feel a little bit better. So that's what we did. But again, we were coughing. She was coughing a lot more than me, complaining about her lips being tingly, complaining about this, complaining about that. We go to the pharmacy and she's like, "Oh, like, do you have any medicine? These are my symptoms, da 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 da." And so she gets prescribed medicine, and we're just thinking that she's coming down with a cold. Anyways, she was unable to book the same train as me going to Machu Picchu because I was doing it through one of the train touring companies, but she really wanted to hike because she had more time in Peru than I had because I have a job where I can't just spend 2 weeks. Not yet. And I'm on the train headed to Machu Picchu, but then I get a text from her saying that she's headed to the hospital because she was coughing all night and felt like she couldn't breathe. And just the shock. I mean, yes, I heard her coughing all night, but I don't know. I just thought that it was because she was sick. I didn't think that it was something that she had to go to the hospital over, but of course, you know your body better than anybody else. And if she felt like she had to go to the hospital, she had to go to the hospital. She's a veteran traveler. She knows when something's wrong. It was so bad that she contacted the hostel desk and was like, "You guys need to send a doctor to my room." Matter of fact, she walked from our room to the hostel front desk, which was kind of far. And she was like, "I barely made it," and asked them to send me a doctor. They sent her a doctor, and the doctor was like, "It sounds like you have liquid in your lungs. You need to go to a hospital right away." So that's when she texted me, and I was like, "Oh my God, what am I gonna do?" What am I gonna do? Should I, like, obviously I can't turn around. I'm almost to Machu Picchu. And of course, she would want me to see Machu Picchu. That was her plan all along. But in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, like I'm worried about her. Hope she's okay. I'm over here seeing all these great Machu Picchu views. And I'm like, oh, it's just like the books. But then, of course, I'm in the back of my head, I'm thinking, Lisa, I hope you're okay. I hope you're okay. And so, like, I tried to stay in the moment, but again, all I kept on thinking about was her. So, eventually, she texts me and was like, "Oh, they put me in an oxygen chamber because her oxygen levels were just so low, like it was dangerously low, and that she had to leave Cusco the next day." Luckily, I was already leaving Cusco the next day, so she just booked the same flight as me. And that way I could help her with her bags and stuff because she was 2 weeks. She didn't have any oxygen. She couldn't breathe. She had liquid. She had water in her lungs because there was just no oxygen. She was drowning. And so I went to the hospital after I came back from Cusco. I mean, after I came back from Machu Picchu, I go to the hostel. I make sure that all of her stuff is like, she picked up all her stuff. I made sure that everything was straight. I go the next day, I go to the hospital and she's like, oh, like very weakly saying, oh, like I'm so happy to see you. Da, 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 da. And I was like, girl, please. Like, I'm just so happy you're okay. I'm so happy you're okay. And I'm so happy that we're leaving so that way you can get back to sea level. And like she's a beach person anyways. She is a mermaid for real. She's always wanting to learn how to surf, like surfing and diving really is her main thing. When we go to the beach, she's always in the water. When we travel, even if it's cold outside, she has on a bathing suit underneath her clothes because she's like, there'll be water somewhere. I need this bathing suit. I need this bathing suit. And so I go to the hospital before our flight and they wanted to fill her up with oxygen in the oxygen chamber before getting on our flight. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm sitting, waiting for her to get out of the oxygen chamber. And I was like, we have to leave. Like the flight leaves in an hour. And so I tell them, I'm like, hey, I'm not sure if you guys know when the flight leaves, but it leaves in like an hour. And they're like, what? What? And so she finally gets out of the oxygen chamber. She's a backpacker. That's the way she likes to travel. I like a little roly doly suitcase because I don't like carrying stuff on my back. So I carry her backpack and the doctor carries my suitcase and we walk out and I'm like, okay, so where's our ride? And we're in the back of the ambulance. And she has on like the oxygen thing to try and again just get more oxygen into her before getting on this flight so that way she can make it to freaking Lima. And so we make it to the airport finally and she's like, okay, we have to we have to stop outside the airport. I was like, why do we have to stop outside the airport? And she was like, if they see me in the ambulance coming from the hospital, they'll ask for documents okaying me to fly. And I was like, oh, damn. I didn't know that. I had no clue. I had no clue what was going on. So we stop outside of the airport. And so we had to walk a little while to get to like the actual front door of the airport. I'm carrying her bag. She was like, let's switch. You carry my bag and then I'll carry your suitcase, like roll your suitcase. Cause of course she's too weak to carry her own bag. And that bag was half my size. Lisa is short. Lisa is 5'3", 5'4", something like that. And the fact that her backpack was half of my height, I was like, this is humongous and heavy. I don't know how you do this. I don't know how you operate. I haven't reached the backpacker level of traveling yet. Maybe one day. And so We finally get on the airplane. I get her situated. She was able to convince, because we didn't have seats next to each other because the flight was booked back from Cusco to Lima. So she was able to convince the guy, like, hey, listen, this is my friend. I want to sit next to her, da 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 da. And the guy had absolutely no problem and was really cool about it. And so we finally landed back in Lima, and I felt bad. Like, I couldn't stay any longer to make sure that she was recuperating, to make sure that she was good. But she was like, I'm good. I booked an Airbnb. I'm just gonna lay in the Airbnb for a couple of days to recuperate, and then I'm gonna go back home to Mexico. And so that's what she did. I checked in with her because after we landed in Lima, I had to flight right afterwards to go back to Atlanta. So I could not stay, I could not extend any longer. I'm just so happy and grateful that everything turned out okay. Um, but like she was telling me that she is unable to go into high elevations ever again. So I can't remember what she said her limit was, but Cusco was just the limit her body could go at that elevation. Anything higher than Cusco, she just is unable to do, or higher than Machu Picchu, because Machu Picchu is lower than Cusco. So she was like, essentially, I don't think I could ever go to Machu Picchu unless the doctor was saying, unless she like went directly there from the airport and then came directly back, went back, meaning back to Lima. And I was like, ugh, it hurt my soul. It hurt my soul because there's so many things that are at higher elevations, like Bolivia. In Bolivia, you have these salt flats that are amazing, that look like you're on an extraterrestrial planet. There's just so many other things, that so much of the world that you can see if you go a little higher. And she was explaining to me that, she was sad because she never had limitations really on where she could travel, how she could travel. And so it's just something that you have to mourn the places that you just might not be able to see and go to. And it just made me think about, you know, my own situation. Like, oh, what would happen if that were to happen to me, if I had limitations on where I could go, about what I could do. Like I don't know. Like, I'm still kind of thinking about it. And of course, there's people in the world who have disabilities that prevent them from traveling, because not every place has the infrastructure or wants to create the infrastructure. There's just so many things that people are limited. Um, and so it just made me grateful. It made me grateful to be an able-bodied person. It made me grateful that, I was able to be strong for her, and that I didn't have any issues. That way I could be strong for her and support her and whatever she needed. Um, and then yeah, like it's interesting. It's interesting. But sorry for the downer. It wasn't all bad. I feel like because of that, our friendship got deeper as well. Before, you know, like, of course, when you travel, everything seems fleeting, which I mentioned in my previous podcast about how to make friends while traveling. Everything seems sort of fleeting, and you don't really get to the depth of relationships that you get when you stay in one place. But sometimes hardships and uh, combined memories um, are also lead to that depth. Also lead to that depth. Sometimes just being there for people leads to more depth within relationships and friendships. Um, and so yeah, I'm happy that I could be there for her. I'm happy our friendship got deeper. I'm happy she was safe and is safe. And listen, nothing after her little recuperating in Mexico, she went to Brazil. This girl is still traveling. Like, she is still out and about. So, yes. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Um, and subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the channel because I'm also doing this video form on YouTube, where you can find it, the link in the description for both the YouTube and the podcast for wherever you listen to podcasts. Um, yeah. Thank you for listening to Off on an Adventure. Catch you next time for hopefully something a lot more lighthearted, to be honest.